Okay, I want to call the Hopkinton Town Council meeting of February 16th to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First up on our agenda is the hearing on comprehensive plan amendment. Render a decision regarding the proposed amendments to the town's comprehensive plan concerning energy consumption and production, natural hazards, and planned improvements to Langworthy Field. Public hearing was held on February 1st, 2016. And I guess council deliberations is first. You guys have any additions, subtractions? Mr. Buck.
On page 4, it says current energy assumption, their municipal consumption. The middle paragraph in that. So this includes street lights at Wellstown Road, Townhouse Road, and Main Street. Just wondered why those 3 roads were pulled out or singled out compared to all the roads in town. And also, if you look further down the bottom of that same paragraph, there's a difference in price per kilowatt hour. Well, I thought we paid one price for everything, so I should understand why there's such a discrepancy from 5 cents, 36, and 17 and 11.
Chief is here. Maybe the police station gets a break.
Jim, do you have any answers to those questions that Tom has?
Well, apparently, the research was done by Foster O'Neill, and apparently the rates vary depending upon what street light it is. That's the data.
But they're all the same, aren't they, Jim?
No, some of them are metal halides, some of them are high pressure sodium. There are different lamps in each and they take different amounts of energy, so I would assume that might be what it's
Oh,
about.
so that was only a light. I thought it was .05 for the police station. That's not what this means?
Yes, 5 cents for the police station per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with the lights. It's the use of the building electricity.
Well, there are street lights in there and police station electricity as well.
Right, so the police department pays .05. That's what it looks like,
Yes.
.05 for their
Yeah.
building.
Correct.
And
Well, I think it's wonderful.
Well, they use the most, right? That's what it is. They use the most.
But I guess your question, Tom, my question too is, what's going on at Wellstown Road?
that's 36 cents for street lights per kilowatt hour.
Well, you know how bright it is over there, too.
That was good, so.
It is, very bright.
Small people.
Okay, other than that, on the following page, on page 6, just some typographical issues. The very first top paragraph, it says the town highest energy cost contributor to gasoline consumption municipal vehicles owned by the police department. That should be used by the police department. The town Hopkinton owns all this stuff. So that second line down should be changed from owned to used. Also, the next paragraph down, the police department owns 18, it says. It should be has 18 vehicles. And let's see, second line down, same paragraph, all the way to the end. The police department also has, instead of owns,
A Humvee.
Humvee, yep. And then the third paragraph down, the Department of Public Works
Uses.
has 20 vehicles. I just want to make sure that the individual departments don't own these vehicles, it's all
Town.
town-owned stuff. And that was
Interesting.
the only thing that I came up with. I was reading.
Look at me?
No,
Okay. Mark? David? Good. Okay.
So we'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the town's comprehensive plan concerning energy consumption and production, natural hazards, and planned improvements to Langworthy Field.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion, folks? All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Okay. Next is the consent agenda, approved town council meeting minutes of February 1st, 2016, set March 7th, 2016 as a hearing date for a solar energy collection facilities tangible property tax abatement filed by Stano Trombino for property located at 45 Bank Street, Assessors Plat 28, Lot 122. Accept the following monthly financial activity report, town clerk, approve refund due to overpayment submitted by the tax collector, approve tax collector's request to adjust off two 2011 accounts as uncollectible.
So we're going to pull the refund due to overpayment submitted by the tax collector and the tax collector's request to adjust off to 2011 accounts. Motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda. Second.
Okay, motion made second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, first public forum, anyone else wishing to be heard? Town Council President report, February 3rd, 2016, I met with USDA Representative Joanne, I forget her last name, regarding potential water line extension with Jeff Marchand, Bill and Jim. Just preliminary, talking about whether funding is available or not. It seems to be, but the majority of it is a loan and not grant, so we still have to work on that piece of it. And it's a work in progress, just a very initial meeting for that. And then February 9th, 2016, I met with Senate President Teresa Piper-Weed, with Senator Elaine Morgan, Senator Dennis Algier, and Barry Ritchie, and we were making our plea or our case to restore that transportation categorical funding to the Charter District. And she took a lot of notes, and she'll let us know when the hearing comes up at the State House. I'm still working on that. It's $107,000 to our budget if we can get it restored this year, so anyway, it's a lot of money. And that's that. Town manager report, Bill McGarry.
Thank you. February 3rd, like the town council president mentioned, we met with Lieutenant Jim Lampier and Jeff Marchand and Joanne Demers, who's a rural development specialist from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, regarding the possible future financing of the, to extend the existing Hopkinton water line funded through a combination of USDA grants or loans and some CDGB funding. It was just a very preliminary meeting, and Jeff Marchand was going to initiate, try to develop an RFQ, request for qualifications in order to obtain some engineering services to obtain some logistics for the extension of such a system. So it's kind of a work in progress at this time. February 4th, I traveled to the Trust in East Providence for a 1-hour seminar on employee disability pensions. That presentation was much better than I expected, and it was very informative. It was made by General Treasurer Seth Magazzino and sponsored by the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns. There was a large audience there consisting of mayors, town managers, and administrators, and town solicitors, and basically discussed changes in the administrative personnel policies of the Treasurer's Office, and also some possible proposed legislation to be presented to the General Assembly in order to kind of rein in these employee disability pensions. More so on the length of time that it takes to either get approved or get denied. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
I have some questions.
Sure.
Bill, so you'll know, in the future, or actually I should say in the future as you go to the past, but when we did the water line last time, because the USDA only does 80% loan and 20% grant, we used Farmers Home, which gave us a significant amount of money, and then we, of course, used CDBG, but we also used water resources money. So we were able to come up with all the money we needed except $100,000. So it was only a $100,000 loan. And unless we can do the same thing, it just won't work because people can't afford it. So, but we look at these other sources and hopefully put together a package. I'd like to work very closely with you on future meetings because there were stipulations that the state had handed down. For instance, conversions, once a water line comes in, sometimes there's zoning changes and it goes from residential to commercial. And it depends on who's in office. And the state didn't want that to happen. They want to make sure that if you have a septic system that's let's say a ranch, that it stays a septic system for a ranch and that it doesn't get to expand now because you have a water, public water. So there's a lot of little things like that. So
Sure.
we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Good. Anything else from both guys? Okay. First, under old business, consider, discuss, and vote to authorize the town of Hopkinton to accept the terms and conditions of the $300,000 loan and financing offered to Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank under the Community Septic System Loan Program, and to authorize the town solicitor to review and execute the necessary loan and related documents on behalf of the town. Yes, ma'am. Jim?
On February the 11th, we were issued a letter of approval from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank for our application for a $300,000 loan to repair septic systems. And that needs to be accepted by the town of Hopkinton. When and if you folks authorize signature of this, subject to our solicitor's review, this will be returned to the Infrastructure Bank, and they will process the closing documents for that loan. We'll have a closing. That's something you do.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question on the, and I know this is just a draft, on the cost and effectiveness self-certification community septic loan system loan program.
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, yes. There is a project identification, name and title of authorized official, signature of authorized official. The project identification, I'm assuming that's the name, the address, the phone, the email of the project.
That project identification would be the Community Septic System Loan Program. It's not going to identify each and every particular project.
Why not? We don't want this to be expensive.
Well, that's what this covers. This covers the project as a whole.
So what is the exhibit to certify people for the loan system?
Well, when people apply for the loan, they will come to the town, they'll have an application, and they will be subject to the provisions that the council passed back on October the 19th, where we have a whole list of provisions that they must meet.
Where is the application? Is that in our packet?
The application for the loan was sent in to the Infrastructure Bank. It was approved, our application was approved. This letter signifies that our application was approved.
Right.
We have to accept it.
I think she's saying about the individual loan, like if I have a septic system, I come here and fill out the application. Do you have applications on file?
We do not have an application prepared right now.
Okay, so that's not in our packet because that's something you're going to be putting together.
Correct.
All right, good. That's what I needed to know because there didn't seem to be anything here that involved humans. It only involved banks.
This is just the loan.
That's fine.
Yes, Bill?
I recall them telling us they weren't going to do all the application work until they had a firm commitment from like each city and town to send it in, and then they would begin all that process. They didn't want to do all that work
For nothing.
for nothing.
One little question here. When this is finally all done and set and ready to go, whose door do they knock on? An applicant wants to come into town. Who do they go to?
We will have something on the town website, probably on the planning department page. We can put it on the front page as well. It can also be on the building and zoning page with an application for people to fill out.
But they're still going to knock on the door. Whose door should they knock on?
The clerk?
Planning.
Right here,
Clerk?
right here.
Okay, all right, that's what I
I'm
needed
in
to
it,
know.
so, yeah.
Because somebody did call today, and I said, you know, we're working on it. I'm not sure who you're going to end up talking to, but that's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah, people may need assistance, and please feel free to call me, the planner, Jim Lanfair, and I'll help them get through the application. The application, once they fill it out, is going to go to Rhode Island Housing, and they will process the application from that going forward.
With a check for $300 for the processing.
Oh, right.
Okay.
David?
Thanks to everybody for getting this done.
Yeah, it's really needed. At least one person I know really needs it.
Motion to authorize the town of Hopkinton to accept the terms and conditions of the $300,000 loan and financing offered through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank under the Community Septic System Loan Program, and to authorize the town solicitor to review and execute the necessary loan and related documents on behalf of the town.
Second.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
motion made second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Not in favor?
Nay.
Okay. All right, let's see, new business. New business. First item under new business, discuss, consider, and vote to authorize the town council president to execute a purchase and sale agreement providing for the town's purchase of the portion of Palmer Circle currently owned by the state of Rhode Island for $1, and go forth and prepare the instruments necessary for the closing transaction, which is the responsibility of the town as specified in the purchase and sale agreement. Bill, please.
Thank you. Over the last several months, the town has been negotiating with the state of Rhode Island regarding the sale of 2.15 acres of Palmer Circle from the state to the town. We've already conducted a title search. We have also conducted a Phase 1 environmental assessment of the property, which the result was very favorable to the town. And in addition, we've issued a certified check in the amount of $1 to the state of Rhode Island to purchase the property. Once the town council authorizes the signing of the purchase and sales agreement, it'll then go back to the state, and go up to the State Properties Committee, and they'll do all the legal work in order to prepare for the closing of the formal transfer of the sale from the state to the town. That's the last step in that Palmer Circle project, which, I mean, I've been involved in a lot of projects, and none went, it was a very complex project, with all the things that had to be done, and no one, as smoothly as I've ever seen one done.
Any questions, folks?
I'd be willing to donate the dollar.
No, you'll
2
screw up
acres.
the accounting.
Yeah.
Hey, that's true. Hey,
2 acres, that's a deal.
I'm very positive about that. Nice work, Bill, thank you.
Go ahead. I move that the Hopkinton Town Council authorize the Town Council President to execute a purchase and sales agreement providing for the town's purchase of that portion of Palmer Circle currently owned by the state of Rhode Island for $1, and prepare all of the instruments necessary for the closing transaction, which is the responsibility of the town as specified in the purchase and sales agreement.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. Any discussion, folks?
I can't believe how much paperwork that took.
Oh, no.
Just amazing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 2 under new business, discuss, consider, and vote on a resolution relative to transportation categorical aid to regional school districts. These Charlestown resolutions came to Lisa, I guess, this past week. And this particular one, categorical aid, is the one that I've been trying to get restored, so it seemed very timely. I kind of didn't think to do it on my own, but glad Charlestown initiated the process so we could adopt theirs and put our name to it, so.
Move that we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Good, motion made second. Any discussion, folks? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Item number 3 under new business, discuss, consider, and vote on a resolution relative to the transfer of Childhood Career and Technical Center. This is again a revenue, potential revenue source that may be diminished by other career and technical centers cropping up against an agreement that we were promised that none would crop up in our area, so it seems very timely as well.
Could I put a couple of questions?
Sure.
On the 4th paragraph down, where the very last sentence in parentheses where it says collectively the South County communities, I'd like them to be referred, if we're going to refer to them, it's Washington County.
That's correct.
And South County doesn't exist, and I hate seeing it on calendars and certainly in one of our own documents. They can change the name of it, that's fine, I mean, until they do, it's Washington County.
Okay.
Absolutely agree. Motion to bring the resolution relative to the transfer of the Charitable Area Career and Technical Center.
Second.
Okay, motion made second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just one, to make sure anybody who's really interested in this understands that what this is about. And basically it is that and I'll just refer to this, the Town Council of Hopkinton is asking the General Assembly to require RIDE, Rhode Island Department of Education, to honor their commitments to Chariho because they, while there was an agreement set in place during as part of the transfer, RIDE has decided with the new person in charge that they're not going to honor the agreement. So that's what it's about.
Okay, motion made and seconded, I believe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, under new business, discuss and consider submittal of comments to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service regarding a draft plan for proposed federal Great Thicket National Wildlife Refuge. My friend Harvey had sent us an email and wanted us to chat about it tonight. Harvey, the floor is yours.
We haven't really had a chance to absorb this, so maybe you could talk about everything.
Okay, so I was kind of on a learning curve right before I sent the email, so the Great Thicket National Wildlife Refuge is something being proposed. It's a little bit different than the ones we have here now. I think the ones like in Charleston, I think those towns are happy to have those refuges there. This one would be made up of many scattered parcels to create a type of habitat that's become fairly rare in our area, more of a scrubby type of habitat, things you wouldn't think of as being valuable, but that for a lot of species is very valuable. And they have focus areas from New York to Maine that would comprise the area that they would seek to acquire properties by over probably a long period of time. It would all be purchases that are willing sellers at the market rate. Some of the parcels could be maybe 25 acres. They don't have to be giant. They just need to kind of network with other parcels so that the animal communities can sort of move back and forth. So it would be our first opportunity maybe to have a federal refuge in the town. I was just trying to understand the scope. So the Rhode Island portion of it, the target would be 3,200 acres, and Hopkinton, a rough approximation, if we got our, let's say, our fair share of that, based on the amount of area in Hopkinton that they've put in their focus area, it would be probably 240 acres. I mean, that's not going to be the real number, but that's just to give you kind of the scope. It's not thousands of acres likely, and it's could be less, but it also might be that Hopkinton has some extra good properties that would fit nicely for that.
To that point, Harvey, do you know if those acres are town or strictly private property? Do you have any breakdown of what's available for this refuge? As far as, are there any town-owned properties that are maybe in the mix, or is it strictly just?
I had mentioned that when I first saw that. I know the town has several scattered small properties around that probably left over from the way subdivisions were done a long time ago, or tax acquisitions, tax sale acquisitions or something. So some of those might be in places that would work. If we get going forward with that, we certainly should take a look at that, because you've got some properties that I'm sure you're going to unload.
Because they also give you a payment, right? There's a payment involved.
Taxes.
If they purchase the property, they'll pay market rate. Now, some of those parcels you want are not, they're not house lots, you know, they're not Cape, they're 2-wet or something like that. But what they also do, I'm not familiar with the refuge system, but they have, I think it was 3 different ways they configure it, but they have ways where they give money back to the town by since they're taking something off the tax rolls. And so that was exciting. And then the other thing that I thought there may be ways where if they come to the town, we might be able to work with them. Land Trust has properties that could easily be used for the kind of habitat that they're talking about. And of course, the Land Trust has been able to acquire properties, but they've been a little short on money to do maintenance and making available to the public and stewardship. And if these folks could come in and we could have some type of arrangement with them where we could develop some of the kind of habitat they're looking for on some of the land trust properties where it's appropriate. They might pick up the tab. We've already done that once at the Grills Reserve. They came in, U.S. Fish and Wildlife came in with bulldozers and stuff and worked over an old gravel bank and got it all set up so it can naturally revegetate for the kind of scrub type habitat. So we might be able to find we have a partner that will put some money into some of the projects that would make the land more valuable.
Would there be any downside to this?
Well, actually, I was just talking to a reporter who was taking a class and said that there's some pushback that they might be creating too much of this habitat. I think it's pretty scattered out myself. I'll look into that some more on my own. But so that's the one thing is that you're taking away one kind of habitat and creating another. But I think it's, what we're trying to do in some land trust properties is create a nice balance of what's there. Because when I moved here 36 years ago to town, there were a lot of quail and there was a lot of stuff here, and the habitat's just gone. It's grown up, and so a diversity of habitat is seems to be a positive thing, and it seems like this would add to it.
Would this land be accessible by the public?
They say it will be accessible to the, they don't make a firm commitment without getting to that piece of property, but one of their goals is to make properties accessible to the public for hunting and for enjoying nature and so forth. And they do that with it. I mean, it falls right into their the system that they operate now. I mean, going over to Niagara places is, it's a very welcoming place. So.
I also have a question about, when I was taking a look at the map, is that they want these places to connect, but I don't see much connection between these scattered places. There are major roads between them. So I'm wondering how they're going to be doing the connection so the bunnies can jump from one spot to another spot without getting killed on the roads. There doesn't seem.
We'll build a drone.
I think it's a good idea, or we may have a tunnel under the road. But, nonetheless, I also think there may be too much space wanted in order to make connections, because these animals can't make the connections, at least the way they've shown them right now. And the only other concern I have is annual revenue sharing payments is great, essentially a payment in lieu of taxes, but they tell us this all the time, and then they take it away. So, that's what we found certainly with the state. I'm not sure if the feds do that as much, but certainly the state does. So I'd like to see just what they've done in the past, and make sure that if they've made that promise, they've actually carried it on for 20 or 50 years. Because they often say that and they don't do it. So I'm a little concerned with how much. I do think we have property that can be looked at, and I love the idea of land trust being able to use some of it. I'm into bunnies and quails and pheasants. I think they're great, but I don't see how they connect.
I think one thing is the connection is these are animals that don't need, one of the things we do, like along the border and stuff, where we're trying to have, thousands and thousands of acres we connect all the way up to the Mass border from here. And there are a lot of species that need large amounts of territory. The New England cottontail and some of the migratory birds and stuff. 5 acres or what I'm saying, smaller things can work very well for them. They don't need giant corridors. And then we've got the power lines and stuff that are very, the right type of woodland anyway, because they keep it suppressed to where it's just brushy, and that's right up their alley.
Is there any problem with, I'm sure they have a problem in the West, is for fire. These will either become fire breaks or they are dry and they can spread fire pretty quickly. Any of the brushy kind of spaces are dry and sort of conducive to fire. Although some of them are useful because they're fire breaks. I just don't know how it works in New England. So
I don't really see fires particularly dominating in the power line areas, more so than around them. But I don't know that I will think about that one and see how I'll do a little bit of research on that. I will also research a little bit more the pay in lieu of. I would say that I assume that if they create this refuge, and they come to town and they can find a willing buyer, they're not gonna even come knocking on your door to ask for permission. I mean, I just assume that's the way it works, that if they've got a willing seller, you can certainly express an opinion one way or the other, and you may be able to do more things than that, I don't know. But I was assuming there's a good chance that they'll show up here someday, and I just soon try to take advantage of it and get some good things for the town out of it. So anyway, I don't know what you want to do now, but I'm going to look into it some more.
You folks have a question?
Yeah. When I look at the agenda item as it reads, it's just discuss and consider comments, submittal of comments. Does that mean that no matter what you say, positive or negative, they're going to come in and do the same thing, right?
Well, I think.
I mean, we'd rather work with the community, but they're not looking for approval. They're looking for comments, correct?
They have a March 4th cutoff for comments. They have not created this refuge yet, so this is at the stage of, you know, they do a process, just like you were explaining some processes, what you're doing with the water line or something a while ago. They're moving forward with the idea that they get these comments and then they'll make a decision whether or not they're going to create the refuge. You know, essentially, that's the way it's going. There are several more steps that they've got to go through. And so, for instance, the comment that I know that over in North Stonington and Bedford and stuff, that's another focus area. And they're going all the way, I think all the way to Valentine Water at least, so they're going more further north. And I know, I heard Ledyard their town council was asking that their entire town be included. I mean, you've got to meet their criteria, which is the types of habitat and the type of species that they're looking to work around. But I mean, at least one town is saying, we want to ask you to expand to our whole town, and there might be some good advantages to that.
I think the problem is that people have to realize that that means fox, not just pheasants and bunnies, but foxes and woodchucks and things that sometimes people don't like to have around their homes. I happen to like them, but I think some of that's a problem. Richmond did a pheasant hunt at what used to be the Richmond Country Club, and it went very nicely, and then people started calling in and saying, there are pheasants on my yard. Well, they're really lovely. And now they're complaining that the pheasants were in their yard. Perfectly nice birds.
I'll finish up. I guess we should, all of us, come up with comments to make. Because obviously this is something that I think would be good for the town in a limited basis. And the land trust has some land already. They're talking about using power line corridors. Obviously, they have, like you said, a limited amount of funds, so they're going to do the best in working with a property owner who may have a lot of land and say, okay, I'll do an easement. I wouldn't look at it from the public out there as, oh, feds are going to come in and buy a couple hundred acres and it's going to go off the tax rolls. It sounds like it's a little more limited. But I think when we come up with the comments, which there isn't much time left, I think we should note that we do have a significant amount of open space. However, this is important, we agree with it, but we have limitations, and that we list some of those things. For instance, encourage them to, like you even noted, to use land that's unsuitable for development, things like that. So I'd like to see us move forward, and I'd like to see that we come up with some pros and cons in relation to our comments, but that we want to work with them. And the Land Trust obviously wants to work, and the Conservation Commission want to work with them. So I'm only a little nervous about it. You made me feel better because it sounds like it's a smaller project, and they want to somehow try to have land like the bike paths. In other words, there's a corridor they want to maintain. So If anybody can come up with any other comments, I think we should do it tonight.
Well, I don't think it's gonna end tonight, Sylvia. I think-
Well, it's not gonna end, but they want them by March.
Right, I think what we could probably do, and Tom's up next, is, I was gonna rely mainly on Harvey. I had a couple tidbit questions that I had, but, it's really for willing sellers too. It's not, you gotta be willing to sell your property at market price to participate in this refuge program. So I don't see it as being really anything to be nervous about.
Right.
I think it's a good program. It happens all the time in the Tunic area. There's all kinds of refuges over there, and they're all federal, which is nice to see. You can't hunt, can't fish, can't do anything. So I think it's a good thing. It's just a matter of who's going to be willing to sell. If there's any town-owned property, like the parcels, I think that we couldn't find anything to do with. We couldn't sell them. There was like, what, half a dozen or maybe a dozen properties that were just off the tax rolls. They went to tax sale and we couldn't do anything. Maybe some of those can be sold to this Fish and Wildlife agency and get some tax payments in lieu of taxes. So,
Let me
anyway.
ask a question. Do we get taxes from, say, the Board of Bond Society or an H Conservancy for that property that they own in town?
No, I don't believe so.
Some yes and some no. Nation Conservancy, for instance, no. We have to pay taxes on that one, I'm pretty sure.
The other bond, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Didn't we abate that?
So,
I mean, bought the power.
in a nutshell, I have no, if we're gonna get taxes from the city, we're not gonna lose the taxes on this land. So as long as we get taxes on this land, I have no problem with this idea.
Well, I think, like I mentioned, the 12 or so parcels that we couldn't do anything with
Right.
when they went to tax sale, they're wet,
And nobody's paying taxes.
landlocked,
Yeah.
no one's paying any
Well-
money on them anyway.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if we can give those away, because we still don't know.
Well, that's
That's
a sticky wicket.
hasn't been resolved.
Right, but, if there's an ability to do that, certainly those would qualify. I think we get some
Yeah, oh,
money
yeah,
for it,
yeah.
but, we've taken the right time. Please, sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm just listening. 240 acres roughly here, however you brought up. I would like to know what the taxes is on that 240 acres. And if they're gonna give us some kind of money back in lieu of taxes, I'd like to have some kind of percentage where that is. Also, let me just go over just a few things I have. Adjoining properties, is there gonna be restrictions to adjoining property owners where you can't do this or that? Questions I have, which I didn't see. And then the neighborhood park, there's no hunting down there. So, anybody you can't. Attorney you can.
Didn't they just allow some honey down there for wounded war veterans or something like that?
Not
Not an integrate.
Vinegar?
Not an integrate. So that's another concern of mine, take away, I'm an avid hunter, I hunt rabbits, and I remember the quail years ago. I haven't seen very many of them in quite a while. So that's a concern of mine, you're putting the restrictions on not being able to hunting it and just making it a passive hiking trails and stuff like that, which I have concerns with. I mean, it's tough enough to find places to hunt now. But overall, especially what we're going through this year with the budget, I'm a little concerned on the tax part. I mean, townspeople have given land trusts $2 million, $4 million, right?
Just 2 million.
Just one? No, but I mean, didn't we give it to them twice?
No,
Just one time?
just
All
one
right,
time.
so we gave them $2 million to purchase land, which also comes off the tax rolls. And now you're looking at another 240 acres on top of that. I understand the long term, because if the property comes off the is put into the land trust or something like that, it's not gonna be building. So you don't have houses put on and stuff like that. So I understand that aspect of it, but I also understand that what I'm paying in taxes and having to make up, what are we making up now, Frank? Trying to make up,
197.
just for that, but that's not including with the school, it keeps going up and stuff like that. So and that's a real big concern of mine is taking them off the tax rolls. So I mean, I like the idea of the refuge and stuff like that. I've been to a few of them.
And to your point, Tom, I think, it would be nice to know what the payment in lieu of taxes would be,
And it's annual,
annually.
it's annual revenue share.
I will, try to get you an answer on that. There was they had three formulas. I mean, I looked through their documents and I can't remember them all now, but it was the higher, whichever was the highest. One of them was some share of like fees for people visiting the property. We're not going to be doing that on these kind of properties, and we're not going to put up a garden or 25 acres out in someplace. Yeah. So the others was percentages. I don't know if it had to do with the fair market value or what it was, but then I didn't run any numbers to see what it was paying, but I thought it was novel just that there would be anything because they could go in and acquire the property anyway, as far as I know. And if it's federal government, I don't think the town can tax the federal government. So I thought it was a good effort to be a good neighbor. That they try to share things. Like I say, I don't think the issues over like in Charlestown, South Kingstown and stuff. I've never heard any discussion that people are unhappy that they're there. And I want to mention on hunting too. The land trustees opened up quite a lot of land and the Nature Conservancy as well for deer hunting. We opened up the Comanche preserves at 600 and something acres this past hunting season. Grills Preserve and Van Log and the TNC property next to it are all open for hunting. And so there's a recognition to, and those are limited. The one Comanche Preserves is deer hunting, and it's archery deer hunting because there's enough people and houses around to limit that. But and from what I read, hunting is something that could well be allowed in these areas. I'll research that some more as well.
Yeah, so to kind of recap, maybe I think everyone can send their comments, questions, concerns, maybe to Bill, and Bill can get them to Harvey, and then Harvey can get your thoughts together and put something in there by the March 4th deadline.
And you can always refer to your comments as these were comments that came out of a public meeting of the town council. I mean, in other words, it doesn't have to be, I wrote this.
I can
And then send us a
relate
copy.
it as best I can to try to get the sense of what.
Yeah, and all the comments, once you compile everything and you send out your letter or whatever it is you're going to send, just make sure we get a copy of what the questions you sent out. So. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Howard.
you, Howard.
Appreciate it. Okay. So last item under new business. Next, boards and commissions. Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt you, it's just because I don't know what your past practice is. Councilmember Capaldo excluded 2 items from the consent agenda. And sometimes, I don't know what you do, whether you vote on them separately or you just defer action to a future meeting. I just want to make sure you just didn't forget about it, because sometimes that happens.
Yeah, we're going to defer to the next meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Better safe than sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Boards and commissions, under number 1, consider reappointment to the Land Trust Maryland Grant, I believe.
Motion to appoint Marilyn Grant Land Trust.
Second. Okay, motion made in second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Okay.
Excellent.
Number 2, consider
We
reappointment.
appoint Jared Rhodes, thank you, to the Affordable Housing Partnership.
Second.
Okay, motion made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye. Yes. He's the chairperson.
I can-
Last public forum, anyone out there wishing to speak? Okay, Barbara, one of our police detectives' dad passed away, and I asked Barbara to adjourn the meeting in memory of him.
We'd like to adjourn the meeting in memory and in honor of Ralph L. Ahern Jr., who has also worked for our town, as well as being a Rhode Island sheriff. So we are very sorry about his passing.
Second.
Okay, motion made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.